discrimination that's occurred against gays and lesbians is, has the same negative effects on a person as what we've done to each race that the United States has chosen to, discriminate against. I mean, we've had a terrible history in World War II with Japanese and interning Japanese people. And, we've always, around the turn of the century, I guess it was Italians and Polish when they first came to the United States. And if you look through history and you study political science, you'll see how people have taken advantage of groups of people and politicized those things. And one of the, I guess, other significant things in my life was hearing people like Bobby Seale from the Panthers and Dick Gregory. And I never heard Dr. King speak, but other than from videos and historical documents, but being directly with hearing some of the leaders in the civil rights movement speak at SMU. SMU was good at bringing people in, and so, I think if you meet people in the middle of who are fighting the battles, I guess, of our country, so to speak, it makes an impression on you that, these are real people, these are real concerns, and these are legitimate issues.
And you brought up Martin Luther King, so do you recall his famous speech at the Lincoln Memorial?
Yeah, but mostly from replays of it.
Do you know where you were at that certain time?
No, that was, 63, and so I would have been 9 years old. Or, let's see, I guess 11 years old, yeah. And, I don't know that I knew about it at the time. I certainly had it from a historical perspective. And I know I probably learned more about Dr. King after his death than before of it. Now, my dad marched in some of the marches right after his death. I don't know if he was ever involved directly with Dr. King. But in the Poor People's March after his death, Dad was part of that. And a couple of the pastors from Kansas City went to participate in that. So we have a couple of friends who have been involved in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, and one of whom worked for Dad, and one of Dad's pastors, Cecil Williams, was the pastor at Clyde United Methodist Church, and so I got to meet Cecil Williams a few times. I'm an old guy, but I'm not quite that old to have been, involved when Dr. King was involved. But people who followed him were very much around my family, and Marshall Hodge was a pastor in Kansas City, and who later relocated down here. And Joseph Lowry, who I think is still alive, involved with the SCLC, was a good friend of the family, and he spoke, I guess, 5 or 6 years ago, before my mother died, over at the Cathedral of Hope, and we went over and heard him speak and talked to him afterwards, since the family knew him. But it was his brother who had gone over to Vietnam and got in trouble, and so on and so forth. And we've been on the periphery of some of the issues, I guess.
Yeah. So what other historical milestones during the Civil Rights era, in addition to the King speech, do you remember as particularly vivid memory? Anything?
Well, certainly, from historical perspective, the Selma March and everything that was done in Birmingham, and actually one of my social work professors at UTA is a sister of one of the girls that was killed in church in Birmingham in the bombing, when the 4 girls were killed. And so one of my social work peers. Actually, I took courses from her and then worked with her afterwards. I think she's still in Dallas, but her sister died in that bombing. And so again, I was just a child when all that happened. But and I think the women's movement occurred at the same time. I think that was a civil rights issue. Her, Betty Friedan, and Gloria Steinem, and all those people were brought to the campus of SMU. And I think I got a good education at SMU, but I got a better education from all the speakers they brought on campus and exposed me to other national and international concerns and issues, and both around peace and civil rights and women's issues and liberation. And in college, I studied. Ended up as an urban studies major, so I was learning about how cities work, but I also concentrated in urban sociology and urban political science, and so I looked at how cities worked, and the sociology, social issues in the community, and also concentrated in economics. I was trying to learn what makes a city work, and I guess that's why I've chosen to continue to kind of live in the inner city. I live in East Dallas, and decided to get into social work and kind of make my life something to see if I can make a difference in how people get along. And so, how the different races treat each other, but also how poor and white, poor and well-to-do get along. So I think the civil rights issues made me sensitive to differences in people and how power elites try to control the rest of the community. And I've always kind of fought against people in authority doing things to people, so to speak, in the community. I've stayed involved in politics. I got involved as a precinct chair in 1984, I guess, after 10 years as a social worker. I guess right after I got my professional degree in social work in 1983, I guess I decided another way of making an impact was try to get the right kind of people elected so that we could have policies that wouldn't discriminate against people, that would lift people up and empower people. And so I think the civil rights movement has made a very significant impact. I mean, I remember the film that came out after King's death about his life that was just so impactful to me. I can still see it on the screen, and his speech in 1963, and the speech about I've been to the mountaintop, and the horror of just seeing the pictures of the shooting in Atlanta and all that. But I followed all that stuff when I was studied all that in college and read a lot about that. I still have a lot of books about the civil rights movement. Not that I read all of them, but I've always been fascinated because I think it was very important sociological change for our country. I think it made the church grow up. I think it made the political system more responsive to differences in people. Not that we're where we need to be now, but I think it made people start to grow and to think differently, to accept people. We still have a lot of prejudice against African Americans and people of a different color, but if Texans would realize we're the white folk are the minority people now, so the Hispanic community has certainly grown in its number and its influence, and so I think that's also something that we need to look at in terms of civil rights. It's not one race running things and everybody else being second-class citizens. It's how we all get along. And the African American community is had its problems over the year too. Just the number of men that get arrested, the attitude of police towards identifying people in the wrong neighborhood, stopping them, looking for reasons to arrest people. The incidence of people arrested is too high. The incidence of single women raising children, that's one reason I hung in there with you guys, with your mom, you know, but you all were great kids, and, you know, it was hard as hell for a single African-American mother to move into a new community, particularly as a refugee, and then try to make it financially on her own and deal with some of the issues your family had to deal with. And so, you know, I just think a social worker, you know, in whatever way I can, need to try to make a difference. So I try to make a difference in making this congregation be open to all people. I try to make a difference in my political life as a precinct chair in a primarily white community, but being involved in the larger Dallas County system to elect people who represent all of us. And certainly in my social work career, I've worked with people who have identified needs, and it's a equality issue. It's treating people with respect. And so I think the civil rights movement has made an impression, and you know, hopefully I can carry that out in ways that are respectful to all persons.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
There you go.